everyone, I'm Sharon. I'm a compulsive eater. So lovely to see you. I'm abstinent today by the grace of God and the help of this fellowship, this way of life. My abstinence date is the 25th of March 2006. So I'm celebrating 14 years, 8 months and 10 days abstinence today. And I have another meal coming. So I'm a bit ahead of you guys on the West Coast and on the East Coast. It is now just after 4 p.m. in the UK. So it's so lovely to see so many of you who I know, who have got to know over the years, and who know me, who's known me since I came to Grey Sheet, my first day. There are people here who've met me on my day one, and there are people here who have met me over the years as I've kept coming back. So Gillian kindly asked me to share today, and she said that the theme of today's meeting was around either the 12th step, the 12th tradition, or the 12th concept. And so I chose the 12th step because it just resonated with me recently. The theme of carrying the message and practicing these principles in all my affairs has come up over and over again in the last couple of weeks. So it happens like that. I don't know if any of you found that when you're working on a particular step, or it'll often be the theme of that month of that year. So that's been my experience anyway. And I suppose I want to say that I want to do my qualification. So I'm abstinent on the Grey Sheet. I do what you guys do. I plan 3 weighed and measured meals from the Grey Sheet food plan. I write my food down. I committed to my sponsor. I don't eat anything in between my meals, no matter what. And my abstinence is the most important thing I do. And because there's a member on this meeting who always says, because without abstinence, I don't have a life. And if you met me while I was in the food, there was probably very unlikely I'd have spent more than 5 minutes in your company. I certainly wouldn't have remembered your name. I wouldn't have been able to have eye contact with you, and I would have been very socially awkward and wanted to get the hell out of there in a nanosecond. So the fact that I'm amongst fellows, be it digital or not, and there's over 30 of us on this meeting today, and I can look you all in the eye and say that abstinence is the most important thing in my life. You know, it's one of the promises, that have come true for me, that I can be amongst fellows, and be a member amongst members, if you know what I mean. I can be a worker amongst workers. I can be a member among members in a fellowship. I can be part of today. I can be useful today, and that's all. Those themes are all concurrent in the 12 steps of GreySheeters Anonymous. And my sponsor always reminds me, there are 11 steps that precede the 12th step. And the 12th step in our book, I don't know if any of you have got this book, but it's a beautiful piece of literature that was published not long ago. I highly recommend it for those who haven't got it yet. But in the reading on page 84, the people who contributed to this book just broke down the 12th step really beautifully in 4 parts, which I love, and I'll just read those to you, just as for my own memory more than anything else. So the first part of step 12 was having had a spiritual awakening, and the second part was as the result of these steps. The third part, we tried to carry this message to compulsive eaters, and in the fourth part, to practice these principles in all our affairs. So, I mean, how rich and how deep, and what an incredible, proposition. I just love that I can testify that I have had not one spiritual awakening, but many. Every day that I wake and get on my knees and pray for an abstinent day and ask my higher power to direct my thinking and to direct my actions, and to show me what next right action to take, to help me to do what I need to do today, to take care of myself for long enough so that I can be of maximum use to others. That is the spirit of what I've been taught here. The principles, the spiritual principles upon which I've had to learn to live my life, which is completely opposite to the way that I was living my life before. So when I'm in that mindset of surrender and asking for help, I can then do the first thing, which is to weigh and measure my breakfast. And that is a spiritual awakening for me. If you're a compulsive eater of my type, I don't know whether I need to qualify just for a short moment, just what it was like. I don't have a huge amount of time, so I'm not going to do my life story. But just to say, I mean, not many people get to GreySheeters Anonymous unless they've had some difficulty or a life-threatening situation as a result of their relationship with food. So in this book, it talks about my disordered eating. So my life was riddled by disordered eating and the ravages of that behavior. And it manifested in horrendous personality disorders, horrendous inability to form lasting and true and fulfilling relationships, a horrendous consequence of just not turning up for my life, just not turning up. I had best intentions, but in the fog of food addiction and self-loathing that resulted that came with food addiction, the self-loathing was so horrendous. It just shut me off from the sunlight of the spirit. It shut me off from having any connection with others. All of my decisions around turning up for life were based on when I looked or felt a certain way as a result of trying to control my food. And of course, because I failed time and time again to meet those terms that I had for myself that gave me permission to participate, because I failed, I never turned up. So if I was invited to a social event and I would do that, I don't know if you identify, but it would be somebody's birthday, or it would be a holiday, or it would be some kind of a celebration, or somebody was receiving an award, or it was a christening, or whatever the party was. There would be some time before the event that I would then begin to starve. I was going to be hope to lose a certain amount of weight, to look a certain way, to wear a certain, before I could go to the event. And of course, I never got to the event because I couldn't stop eating. So and that went on to a point of complete insanity. I was just completely broken by the time I crawled into these rooms, desperate for a solution. I tried everything else, and I can tell you now, nothing has worked as beautifully and as perfectly for a compulsive eater of my type than this process of weighing and measuring 3 meals a day, committing it to a sponsor, writing my food down, doing what I say I'm going to do, eating what I said I'm going to eat, no more, no less. If I make a mistake, I turn it over, So I've learned something about commitment and discipline here, which are great attributes that one I've developed that have set me on a path to actually become, enjoy life as it is being presented to me and participate in a way that I was never able to before. So the spiritual awakenings for me have been many, but the most profound have been as a direct result of working the 12-step program of recovery with a sponsor, with somebody who's armed with the facts, as it talks about in some other literature, which we as a fellowship have taken huge inspiration from, and many of us still work the 12-step program as written in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I like to work between that book and our book, and how rich and how fortunate I am to have been taken through both those pieces of literature time and again, and have been able to then take others through both books. And because putting the food on the scale is just the beginning, as you all know. We know that if you ever want to know why you ate, get abstinent. What I'm left with is a condition that centers in my mind, a thinking illness that predominantly does your thinking for you, to the point of I become resentful about what I think you're thinking, and I will then separate myself from you. And I do that it's my default setting. And I make stories up in my head about stuff, and I believe my own stories. And it's the pain of that reality, of that awareness that I've been given as a result of working this program, that only gets resolved when I share it with one of you. where I write it all down. Thank you, Stacey. I acknowledged. And through the practice of the first 9 steps, certainly, I was given a kind of foundation, a blueprint of learning something about how my illness manifests itself, how deeply dishonest, judgmental, arrogant, manipulative, indifferent, prideful, did I say dishonest? I'll say it again. How self-centered and selfish and self-seeking I was. All my motivation for relationship was about what you could do to make me feel better. How much I wanted you to desire me, to adore me, to validate me, to tell me how wonderful I am. And if I wasn't getting that response from you, I wasn't interested. And that was how I carried on. And I have learned that in order for me to stay abstinent, if I don't change that behavior, I will eat again. Bottom line, because eventually and ultimately it alienates me from you. And I have had such a gift of being a member of this fellowship. I've been given such an incredible life that each day I wake, I am committed to doing that thing called character building. And a lot of my character building comes from being of service. And that's the other theme of this step, which is, so as a result of these steps, it says, we try to carry this message to compulsive eaters. And so, the only reason I'm here is because I've been giving this away. And it tells me, my sponsor was very black and white. Thank God there's no mucking about with her. So I could deal with the gray areas of living. She said, if you want to keep what you've got, you have to keep giving it away. And I love that paradox. Here. Who'd have thought that all I do is keep telling you how I stay abstinent a day at a time, and that helps me to stay abstinent. Whether you stay abstinent or not is none of my business. I'll stay abstinent because I'm telling you how I stay abstinent. And then just to finish, and it says, so carry this message to compulsive eaters and practice these principles in all our affairs. And so, which brings me back to the design for living, which brings me back to that continuous working on character. And I could be, Miss Service and, doing fabulous things in your eyes. But when I come home of the evening or an afternoon, I can be a bitch from hell. I can be passive aggressive. I can get a resentment towards my husband for not doing, saying, or behaving that I want him to in a nanosecond. I can be selfish. I can be snappy. I can be, all of those things. And if you want to know how abstinent and how emotionally sober I am, ask my husband. And at the moment, it's good, because I catch myself. Thank you, Stacey. I catch myself. I can do an inventory. And like I said before, the way out of any of that kind of discomfort and pain is by doing inventory and sharing it with my sponsor, sharing it with a step 10 partner, prayer, meditation. And so, I love this way of life because it works. And I don't take this for granted. I may have over a decade, of whatever, 14 years of back-to-back grey sheet abstinence as we define abstinence. But how well am I getting on in life? Am I financially self-supporting? Am I dependable? When I say I'm going to do something, do I turn up for it? And so the answer is yes. I came here in thousands of pounds in debt. I came here with my life was in tatters. I hadn't finished my education. I was 37 when I got here. And I remember sharing with a member on this meeting when she was talking about finishing her PhD and the things she wanted to do. And I was just completely in awe of her. And she shone with dignity and self-respect. And she talked about how much she loved doing what she does in her life. And she said, Sharon, if you told me that I'd be doing these things at this time in my life when I first came in, I wouldn't have believed you. And she said, and the same will happen to you. And she was right. I've got 2 careers that I never dreamt I would ever have. I went back to university and finished my degree as a result of the help I got here. I've got married in abstinence. My husband's never seen me in the food, and by the grace of God, I hope he never does. if I stay with you guys and stay in the middle of this bed, he may, he may continue to be married to an abstinent wife. Thanks, Stacey. So I'll just keep saying yes to service because it works. And I keep giving this away every opportunity I've got. Never afraid of grabbing my scale out of my bag and putting it on a table. Thanks all. I'd love to hear from you.